Look who we've got on board. It's Stephen Fry. Hello, Stephen.
My dear Alan, it's lovely to be here.
Thank you. Well, why did you choose Alan Air out of all these other airlines?
Well, the fact it's the service is so good. You push down the aisle, the best treats. You know, the treats don't stop coming. Have you noticed on airlines now they stop doing little bottles of water even? They're so mean, but you aren't.
Well,
cashew and pea.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you know, if someone's got a nut allergy, I say no nuts.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind.
Exactly.
Yes. Where do you stand on the hot towel, though, when they give you the hot towel? And then, because if you notice, they have pinchers, and yet they just drop it in your hand, and it's like they've wiped around the top of a volcano. It's
so true. And then it loses its heat so fast. And when you give it back to them, it's horribly damp and cold.
Yes.
Weird. They're a mystery. And I never actually know. I missed the lesson at school that told you whether it's for your forehead, the back of your neck, or for your hands.
Yes.
So I sort of vaguely do each bit and then hope someone isn't looking at him and saying, see, that's Stephen Fry. He was wiping it on the back of his neck. Is he mad? Because where are you supposed to do it?
Well, I once put it straight on my face, and it looked like I was bobbing for chips.
Or,
no, like the elephant man. Yeah. My face is so deformed. Listen, you've travelled bloody everywhere. Do you have fun holidays, or do you tie it in with work? Can you relax?
Always work. Nearly always work. I had a week in Granada with my husband planned for September, and then I accepted a West End play, and now I can't go, so I've had to cancel that. Otherwise, we have a house in America, and we go to that when we can. And that's like a holiday, although I do tend to do work as well. And like you, I work from home a lot in terms of Zooms, and I have a little recording studio, my little booth. I mean, it's not an Elton style thing where I can make an album or something, but it's enough to do an audiobook. Yeah. During the lockdown, it kept me relatively sane. I did, I think, 25 or 6 audiobooks, which was wonderful. Yeah. You just go down in the morning in your pajamas and with a cup of coffee and do a chapter, and then have some breakfast and then do another. It is, it gives you a focus. It's really thrilling.
Can we talk about America? Because I'm listening on audiobook, Stephen Fry in America. Now, I know it's from 2000 to 2008, and you do an intro and say, a lot's changed. But something did... Because the Americans must love you over there. You are quintessentially English. And even when I go over there, because normally people recoil at my voice, don't they? Hello, like that. Over there they go, oh my God, where are you from? Even I am quite charming. They're obsessed. I'm not going to obsessed, maybe that's too much.
No,
but you are like so.
Yes, you can, yeah.
Do you turn it on a little bit? Hello, America. What did Oscar Wilde say? I have nothing to declare but my genius.
I try not to overdo it, but no, there is something extraordinary about that, isn't there? The American fondness for a kind of England that doesn't really exist, because I'm a kind of Englishman that doesn't really exist. I'm a construct in some ways. I don't know how it happened. It's not deliberate. I mean, my brother he's not wildly different. He lives in the country and, sort of the same accent from school and so on, but not as somehow, I feel my vocal cords are made of tweed, and I don't know how I think it's because it's a number of things. My love of language and insomnia when I was a early pubescent and then a mid-teenager, I really found sleep difficult. And I would listen to the BBC World Service, which still exists, but it was the only thing that was on all night. And you would turn it on, and this is London. And you would get these slightly, 10 or 15 years behind the times type of English accent. And I, would then eventually fall asleep at 4 or 5 in the morning with this in my ears. And it seems to have become my voice. Plus my hero, Vivian Stanshall, who was the kind of one of the leads. They had 2 leads in the Bonzo Dog Doodah band, with whom I was obsessed, a comedy Dadaist band of absolute brilliance who were very, very funny. And Neil Stanshall, I still say to this day, has the finest English voice that ever existed. It's extraordinarily beautiful.
Isn't it ironic? Your voice now, you're on those to help people sleeping, don't they?
Yes, it is nice.
My ex used to have you under his pillow. And what's that one? And then the train went in the tunnel. I love that one. Because I can sleep, so I don't have any trouble.
don't
But
have
he went,
that.
and
Yes.
the train went in the tunnel.
Someone
What
shouted,
happened to that train?
Someone shouted at me across the street, "My children go to bed with you." There are ways of expressing this thought, and there are ways of expressing it. But no, it's a delight because I've said this before, but when I was sent away to school at the age of 7, to prep school, as it was called, as they still are, I suppose. And in those days, it was quite common for children to board from the age of 7. I grew up in Norfolk, but the prep school was in Gloucestershire, so I really was far from home. But the thing that upset me was not homesickness, really. It was the fact that I suddenly thought I was going to be a lonely little weed in the corner, totally ignored, because the things that made boys popular, I soon discovered I was all hopeless at. Mostly, of course, sport. So I was one of those people, if you threw a ball at me, I would clap my hands at it and miss it.
I can't imagine that.
And I was
See, I was completely
uncoordinated.
opposite.
You were absolutely brilliant sportsman.
Yes,
I can
completely
see
opposite,
that.
yeah. But then, of course, because my dad was football manager, they would make me captain
exactly,
without.
of course
I
they
hear
would.
we've got a football manager's son here,
Yeah.
Alan Carr. And, of course, they'd look up along the line and I'd be like, me, sir.
I go, hang on.
Wait a minute. This isn't what I ordered.
No. So anything, I'd trip over the white lines on a tennis court, and I couldn't sing or play a musical instrument. I couldn't paint or draw. And I just thought, I'm hopeless. But I discovered that I had a facility for language, that I could use it in ways that other boys didn't. That in a sense, it was my music. I could use it to delight, entrance, tease, humiliate, and tell stories. In the dormitories at night, I would tell ghost stories and stories of demons and horror mostly, but also sort of comic, surreal stories. And I would make them up and use language to make them enchanting. And it stopped me from being bullied. That and my... Absolutely. If you have anybody watching has a child, it has to be a boy, really, you'll see why, who you think is being bullied, you can use the patent Stephen Fry anti-bullying technique, which works 100% of the time.
Oh, wow.
So the bullies come up to you and they raise their fist or they start to back. No, don't touch me, I'll get an erection. And I promise you, oh, bloody hell. Oh, God. And they depart baffled.
That's brilliant. And please write in if that works for you. If that's helped you.
It may help you get more than not bullied. You never know. You may make a friend for life.
Because in Stephen Fry in America, I love that bit where it says, we go, only in Britain. It's so negative, isn't it?
Yes,
and down. And yet,
that's right.
Only in America.
They
it's
mean the opposite things.
Yes,
If an American says only in America, it's because something extraordinary has happened. Someone has climbed a building backwards naked, or they've flown, or they've invented something phenomenal.
Yeah.
And if you say only in Britain, it's something grey and miserable
Depressing, it
and
hasn't
quewy.
worked. Yeah.
Exactly, it's a disaster. like the HS2, whatever it's called, railway. That's only in Britain.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, and the one thing I'm also quite proud of, in a way, in there, because it was 2008, is the only moment when I get really angry and dismissive and kind of satirical is describing the works of Donald Trump. In Atlantic City, the vulgarity, the horror, the show, the boastfulness, the fakeness of it all really annoyed me. It was disgusting, and to see him boasting. And there was a Donald Trump shop, and it sold kind of slightly slimy, thin business executive style belts, but they were too thin and onyx, sort of onyx cigarette lighters.
So I quite liked him, but now I've heard about this belt, he's gone right down in my
you and I are both great fans of Oscar Wilde, and he was an aesthete, and aesthetics is not just like, oh, how pretty things are. It's an idea that you can actually, there's a moral force to aesthetics, that ugliness betrays something else behind it. D.H. Lawrence was similar. The ugliness of industrial cities was more than an offence to the aesthetic eye. It was an offence to the moral self. There's something wrong about ugliness, and there's something wrong about vain ostentation. It betrays something deep behind it. Decent people don't do that. They don't show off like that with gold and onyx and hideous shiny leather and think it's classy. It's a very shortcut to the interior of a person's soul. And it's not snobbery either, because plain simple things can be so beautiful, and it's just, I don't know. When Wilde was in Chicago, he was asked why he thought America was such a violent country, and this was he was touring it as a young man, and this was an America that less than 100 years earlier had been founded in a spirit of such optimism and belief in human decency and dignity and harmony and equality, obviously accepting the slave trade. But this was after the Civil War, but in that time they'd had a civil war, which still today is mano a mano the most violent and bloody civil war ever fought.
Really?
In terms of the attrition rate. Plus they had gangs rising up in Chicago and New York, and they had the massacre of the native population, the Native American population. I mean, and they Americans were puzzled. How can we have been founded with such hope? And now we are just surrounded by stories every day about bloodshed. And Wilde said, it's very simple. It's because your wallpaper is so ugly. And of course, they laughed. But again, he sort of meant it, because if you look out of the window at nature, it is unconditionally beautiful. Wherever you are, it's the Arctic or the deserts or the Cotswolds or the Lake District or, wherever you are, or the Gobi Desert, you think, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But if you see anything ugly, it's something made by mankind. And if you grow up surrounded by a sign of the only things that we make are uglifying, then you will grow up with no self-belief, no stake in and violence, and a sort of cynical view of life and a cheap view of the worth of life will follow. But we are capable of making beautiful things, and that's what art is. And Wilde, when he was touring America, he went down a silver mine and gave them a lecture on Benvenuto Cellini, the Renaissance silversmith who made beautiful, beautiful silver objects. And he said, you're mining this silver, you could be making, and he described some of the things that Cellini made, and instead you make ugly silver dollars.
Have you ever, what's the word for this? Because I'm guilty of this. When you go on holiday somewhere to visit where someone's died, what is it,
I suppose, I mean, not necrophilia exactly.
Well, I do like to do that on holiday, you know.
Necrotourism.
That's it, necrotourism.
Necro
Have you gone to a hotel where...
I have.
Yes.
It's actually owned by Peter Frankopan, the historian who wrote that wonderful book, The Spice Road.
Oh, yeah.
A wonderful book about the history of that incredible trading road. It's wonderful. I mean, supposedly... he said either this wallpaper goes or I do. He's obsessed with wallpaper.
And is it true his unpaid bill is still on the wall?
It is still there on display, yes.
Wow.
And I tell you, the thing that always moves me in Paris is to go to his grave side, or his tomb, the sepulchre by Jacob Epstein, a sarcophagus, I suppose you'd call it, because he died in agony, and in the midst of the biggest scandal the Victorian world had ever seen, his name absolutely synonymous with shame and disgrace. He was vilified, and his reputation absolutely in tatters, aged 46. And he couldn't necessarily know that his reputation would rise. But if he could know that this tomb had to be closed down for a few months, and the Irish government, with the French authorities responsible for Père Lachaise cemetery, restored the sarcophagus because its sandstone had been corroded or eroded by so many kisses that the lipstick of people who came every day to kiss his tomb, isn't that? I mean, it just makes me weep when I think of it. It's such a vindication of his life, because he's become a sort of prince of students of Bohemia, of people who still believe in open thinking and adventuring with the mind and the spirit, rather than closing down and I had a bad time in the 90s when I left a play, and when I came back, and I talked about my mental health and everything, and done a documentary, and a taxi driver would often say to me, "Oh, you're all right now." And I remember one said to me, "Yeah, because you went off the rails, didn't you?" A bit like that, and I was so used to saying yes, but suddenly I thought, "Good heavens!" I said, "Yeah, but excuse my French, who the fuck wants to be on rails? Isn't a rail nothing but an inverted rut?
Yeah.
And who wants to be in a rut?" I was off the rails. I was free.
Yes.
And actually, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And you have to reframe these phrases sometimes, or at least think about them.
Yeah.
So easy just to say off the rails, but as I say, on rails?
Yeah.
We're human
Some
beings.
people say go round the bend. I might want to go round the bend, see what's round the bend.
Exactly.
There might be something amazing round that bend.
Exactly right.
Yes.
But that's, the language has, over a couple of hundred years, and it's not much more than that, has forced us to believe in being on rails, on a straight road, not round a bend, it's the same with work. We're going to have to re-examine what work means over the next decade, as we know, because of AI and so on, and this idea that jobs will be taken, and there will be a large percentage now of the population where the mixture of robots and AI will be taking over the manual and indeed the
I think
the
we're just going to be
work.
working in an Amazon warehouse, all of us, aren't we, really?
Well, those are all robotized. If you've ever
What?
seen
I can't
one.
even get a job there?
Oh, hardly. I mean, there are people overlooking it, but almost everything they do is done by forklifts that are not manned. And
That's depressing.
but, well, yeah, you say that, but my point is that human beings have evolved over millions of years, but over recently, since what is known as the sort of modern age of prehistory, which is before 50,000 years ago, and then historic age, which is since writing, which is only 5,000 years, really, since 5,000 years. We weren't evolved to work. Work isn't a natural condition of humanity in the sense of 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are hunter-gatherers. You feed yourself.
Yeah.
You find a way of feeding yourself and growing in groups, and there are a few hunter-gatherer tribes left. But the big mistake we made was to stop and settle. Yeah. And the alpha males protected these bits of land that we had realized you could grow food in and stay and have guaranteed calories instead of moving from place to place and finding new places and new animals to kill and so on. You could breed animals, and that gave us diseases from animals because we lived with them, pigs and cats and dogs, cats to protect the grain barns from rats and mice, and dogs to do everything. And of course the alpha males got on horses and protected you from other tribes who would steal it, and they then slowly got castles and became aristocrats. But the people who laboured in the fields were just enough calories to keep them labouring in fields, and this idea of work slowly developed, and then the Industrial Revolution maximised it to the horrors that we know about in terms of rickets and the disease spreading, the tuberculosis, the poverty, the contamination and pollution, the soots in the air, and this idea that you've got it, and then it sort of, as it developed more and more money, the middle classes grew and grew, get on a train, go to work. This is not what animals don't do that. There isn't anything holy about work.
It. Turn the camera off. You're right. Fuck this. I'm out of here.
But this is good because it's fun.
It's fun. It's not work.
Yeah, it's not really work.
Can you see an AI Alan Carr? Why am I thinking C-3PO?
Well, really. I speak 140,000 languages. Well, yes, I mean, on screen, of course. You have to remember, whatever you see from AI now, it's never going to be this primitive again.
No.
So don't judge anything you see now and go, oh, I saw it do it, wasn't very impressive. Yeah. Well, of course it wasn't. AI now is the equivalent of a gigantic mobile phone that big.
I think they're only telling us little bits. I think it's already advanced.
Well,
that's what I think.
You
know what? I was on Instagram. There was this fit man in these tight jeans. I was like, and I thought, he's nice. It was AI.
Well, that's exactly. And
I fell in love with a fucking cartoon.
AI companions are already becoming quite a problem. People are falling desperately in love with AI companions. If you go on
getting AI, because I'm single. I know you won't believe this, but you were celibate for 15 years, and I think I'm getting that way.
Yeah, it's a perfectly happy place to be if you are. If you are.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, it depends.
We reminds me of that Lily Savage line. I'm celibate here, celibate there.
Oh God, love him. I miss Paul. Oh, that's glorious. But I was saying I did Ryland's.
I saw it, yes.
And he was talking about love.
Can I just say I was offended for you, asking if you have a wank? I thought even I wouldn't sink that low, Ryland. Shame on you.
It was quite funny. But I seem to shock him by saying, that yes, people want to be loved, but it's as much as anything that we want to love. Yes. We've got this huge reservoir inside us of love that we want to give. Yes, we want to, we want to receive it. We want to give it. It's one of the great things about Too Much and Lena Dunham is the little rows that Felix and Jessica have in the series are often about the inequality of what each is giving the other, and it's so touching because everyone recognises that. But it's very rarely just been done with such a level of reality and authenticity, has it?
It's so brilliant. It's like a rom-com with bite, and
with real bite. And truth.
And I mean the list of cameos and supporting. I mean that's how much. Yeah. How good the script is.
Yeah,
all
how respected
those people.
Lena is.
Yes.
Yeah, because she's such a talent. It's incredible. And she penetrates a generation. And she, if you can find it online and you can get past the paywall, and you might get the first shot free on The New Yorker, she wrote a brilliant article. Well, two. One about leaving New York. It actually brings you to tears. It's extraordinary. And another one about brat culture, what being a brat is. And her ability to penetrate that, the culture of her generation and the generation just below is very insightful for people like me who really are a bit sort of a stranger in that kind of land, as you can possibly imagine. Brats and I don't often meet, at least not to my knowledge.
You've never had a brat summer?
No, and whatever she's called, Charlie XC.
Yes.
Is the brat of the Tutti Bratti.
Yes, yeah. I mean, if you want to be a brat, you want to be that kind of brat.
This is nice to
and listen,
talk about
I got mentioned in this.
Too Much. You did, because you're a symbol of Britishness, and you are.
I was really. That's a real compliment.
Yeah, it shows she doesn't go for the obvious. She doesn't just sort of say,
don't spoil it.
Clarkson.
Back up.
No.
Stop talking, Stephen.
If she'd said Clarkson or Norton,
a well-respected broadcaster, then it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. No, I don't mean that. I mean, it
you get replaced by AI.
Yes. Oh, years ago. Yeah. My voice years ago. I've been interested in AI since the 1980s. And I met and knew slightly a man called Marvin Minsky, who is known as the father of AI. He coined the phrase artificial intelligence and founded the AI lab in MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts back in the 50s off the back of an extraordinary paper by Alan Turing talking about thinking machines. So, it's been going a long time, this idea, because true scientists and mathematicians have known the potential for a long time. And it's all been about waiting technology to catch up in the same way as the moment in the very early 20th century that Einstein wrote his papers on relativity. The idea of a nuclear bomb was clear in his mind that it was a possibility, but it took a long time for the technology to catch up, the idea of the cascade, and so on. But and so this idea has been around for a long time. But in the 1980s and 90s and even in the early 2000s, we were in the middle of what was known as the AI winter. And the AI winter meant all the ideas were there, or most of them, but it just couldn't be done. And the reason it's been done is not because people are cleverer now, it's because if you wanted an AI system, what was known as an expert system back then, to be able to have any thoughts about Shakespeare, first thing you had to do was to type in word after word of all of Shakespeare into it. Otherwise, it wouldn't know Shakespeare. Now, of course, we have these enormous fields of data because of the internet for the last 30 years. Has almost all of human knowledge is out there and is being added to every day. So you need what are called crawlers to crawl the internet and feed this. This is the oil with which AI works. Because in 1990 and even in 2000, it was a bit like if Karl Benz in Mannheim, Germany, showed everybody in 1860 his invention, the motor car. And he said, it runs on gasoline. And they go, yeah, but where do you get gasoline from? Because in 1860, nobody had cracked crude oil into its constituent parts, gasoline, paraffin, all the other different bits, from methane all the way to tar, basically. And so suddenly all these Rockefeller's oil fields could mean you could have a car industry because you could have petrol, as we call it, or gasoline in America. Similarly, you couldn't have AI until recently because there weren't these fields of data. But now there's all this data.
Yeah.
And of course, there has also been some brilliant technological advancements mostly from British people. I mean, the two Nobel Prizes last year to Geoffrey Hinton and Demis Hassabis were because of their work on AI, on machine learning, unsupervised reinforced machine learning, as it's sometimes called, in which the machines teach themselves basically the rules of a game. That game can be not just a game in the sense of chess or whatever, but a sort of system, a human system that they can master.
Because I went to the doctor's for a checkup, and they said about checking my prostate.
Very important.
And she said, which you have to.
Can't replace a doctor's finger.
Yeah, I know. Well, my doctor said, "Oh, do I have to? I'm off to Mauritius." He did. And
That's a sort of Alan Bennett line, isn't it?
I know. And I built up
Mauritius.
so much thing, and I'm there in a checkup, and I said, I'm at that age where
brought my own KY.
have a run up, get in there. And he went, "Oh, I'm off to Mauritius." I mean, please, come on. But she said they can AI my prostate. Is that true? Instead of sticking the thing up, they what's it called? The telescope? No, what's it called?
Yeah, an endoscope.
Periscope.
Or they do a biopsy, which is in order to get the actual clip of, which is unpleasant to get a clip of material. Because I had this whole thing a few years ago.
Oh, God.
Almost 8 years ago now, I think it was.
But do you reckon AI could go up my arse? Do you reckon AI could go up my arse?
An AI is not. You mean something robotic controlled by an AI? The AI is the mind.
Yes,
but yeah, I know what you mean.
I know. Yes, yeah.
But my very silly campaign is to get people to write AI with capital A and small I with a dot. Because I think the way people write it AI at the moment is unfair on people like Al Murray and Al Pacino, because it just looks like Al.
Yes.
It looks and indeed Al Allen.
Yes.
And so you see things like Al is the greatest threat to the human race we have ever seen. And you kind of think, you and Al Murray are going, blimey, that's a bit strong. Okay, well, not everybody's cup of tea, but
not that bad. His jokes aren't that bad.
Whereas it's just the letter I with the dot, and you know where you are. So that's the most important thing the government must do about AI.
I'm going to ask you a question now, and I know you're not going to answer it.
Okay.
Because I normally, obviously, it's a holiday podcast, and I talk about, have you ever holidayed with a celeb? And we holidayed quite recently up near Inverness in a castle.
We did, as it happens, didn't we?
But we can't say anything.
Not a word.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And there's already clickbaity things happening already. Have you seen that?
No,
apparently there was a feud, and I read it. There's no bloody feud. But then that would be used again, wouldn't it?
Will,
so we're obviously talking about Celebrity Traitors, which was a wonderful experience. Wonderful, one of the best things. But I had to mention it, but I know our lives aren't worth living if we start.
Oh no,
giving
absolutely.
out
We've
spoilers.
signed away our souls at the expense of any leaks are not possible from us.
But
we wouldn't want to anyway.
No,
we don't want to disappoint the audience.
But it was great because I think in our business we don't have office parties, we don't have Christmas, dude. We never spend quality time, and I love that bit of it.
You're too young to remember the 6th floor of the BBC. Was it the 6th or the 4th? My God, it's that long ago. They used to have the light entertainment Christmas party with the silver ice bucket, which was given every year. The first year I went, it was given to Val Doonican. It's the long service entertainment award. And you'd go there and you'd see, when I first went there, Eric was already dead, but I saw Ernie Wise, you saw the two Ronnies, you saw all the great figures that I grew up with and you grew up with, who entertained us, and the heads of light entertainment had two branches. It had variety, which was kind of like Bruce Forsyth's Generation Game, and it had comedy, which was sitcoms, and what then was called broken comedy, sketch comedy. And I was starting out in this, and oh my God, that was. Because the BBC felt like it, the mecca of all things, and
you never get to see anyone. You don't rub shoulders
with
anyone
anymore. No, you
anymore.
don't. But that was a great experience because I did meet all these people.
Yeah,
thrilling. But I did go on holiday
Oh,
Well, not on holiday. Well, that's not on holiday exactly. It turned out to have gone on holiday with Billy Connolly and his wife.
oh wow.
I was in Australia and I'd been supervising this installation, as it were, of a musical called Me and My Girl that I'd written the book of, the dialogue and some of the lyrics that had been on in London and on Broadway, and it was going on in Melbourne. And the director and I went there to help direct the production, and it was over Christmas time, so we took a week and a half off and went up to Hamilton Island, which is in the Barrier Reef.
I've been there. I've been there.
It's amazing,
stunning,
isn't it?
stunning.
Really astonishing.
All those beaches.
And we arrived and checked in at exactly the same time as Billy and Pamela. So I had this magical week with one of the most remarkable human beings you could ever meet in your life. He is Superman in every way, morally, comically, just an incredible person. Anyone who's had the good fortune to meet him will say there's never been anyone like him. He's just remarkable.
And he's one of those comedians as well. Sometimes you see some comedians and they were great in their day and they're a little bit, but you still go, he's still funny, still hysterical.
Yeah, totally.
I read his latest book. Oh my God, I was howling. And I thought, still, he's just fun. He's comedy personified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Have you ever had a holiday romance?
I wish I could say I had, but not so much as a quick sort of shag up against a galley in a cruise line or anything like that. Not that I've ever really been on a cruise liner, I have to say. I once launched one. Well, sort of launched one. I got invited.
Well, where's this story going?
No.
One minute you're being banged up against a galley, then you're
I'm
launching
not being banged up against.
Oh,
that's
sorry
the
to
point.
hear that.
but it did remind me of the one time I went on a cruise liner. It was a Swan Hellenic cruise liner and I got this call saying, the opening ceremony. I thought, I'm going to drop the champagne bottle. But it turns out you can't do that. It was being done by Judi Dench, because only a woman can launch a ship in British maritime law.
No way.
Yeah, because what happened was there are two ships particularly, but a few others, the Titanic being the most famous, and the Lusitania, which was bombed by German, very early, torpedoed, yes, by early submarines, U-boats. And they've both been launched by the king or by a king or a prince or something. And so sailors, being very superstitious, had noticed that ones that had been launched by Queen Mary or whoever Queen Alexandra or whoever the other queens were had all been fine. So suddenly it became this thing that they would never invite the king or anyone male to launch a ship. But anyway, so Judy very naughtily said, I don't want to make a speech. Invite Stephen along, he can do the speech. And I was like, oh great. Because it was actually it was Swan Hellenic. It was a special ship that, that they do tours. You do tours of the Greek islands where there's a tour leader who tells you all about the history of the Greek.
And you love that audiobook I told you. Is it Mythos? Yes. Oh.
So it worked very well. So that's the only time I've been on a cruise liner. But
do you like, because I imagine you're quite a busy bee, your brain's all over the place. Can you actually be on a cruise ship and stay on
I couldn't imagine being on it. And it's an awful thing to say, and I know it sounds snobbish, but it really isn't anything to do with that. But I would be terrified of just being stuck there and not necessarily liking the people all around me. And how do you and I wouldn't like just locking myself in the stateroom all on one's own or with my husband and feeling unsociable and just getting room service from the stewards and people say, oh, they're a bit up themselves, aren't they? But on the other hand, being sort of trapped by a couple who are showing you their photographs of their grandchildren or whatever.
Yes.
And I'm sure they're lovely people and you can make great friends, but really what one yearns for is the days of the great ocean liner crossings before aeroplanes, when it was the Queen Mary and so on. And in fact, I read about once there was a crossing that I think had George Gershwin, Charlie Chaplin, and Noel Coward all on the same crossing, and the purser, who I think is responsible for these things, said to them, as you said to all first-class passengers, oh, there's going to be a smoking concert, a sort of entertainment, on the third night or something, and we were asking all, but obviously you're professional performers and maybe you don't want to, do a show. Some people are doing a magic trick or whatever. And they looked at each other and said, hey, let's do something. And apparently if you were there seeing George Gershwin and Noel Coward and Charlie Chaplin doing their show on the ship, it was the greatest entertainment anyone had ever seen. For that one night. Never repeated, never filmed, just a gift Wouldn't that have been astonishing?
That would have been amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you talked about people then, and I remember reading your book, and I have the same problem. I mean, listen, I can chat forever, but you hate that question as well. What are you doing here? I hate that one. You know, when you're in the shop.
supermarket.
What are you doing here?
I'm playing a semi-final of the World Badminton Championship. What the fuck do you think I'm doing? One doesn't say, except inside oneself.
No. But one of the questions I got, are you gay in real life? In real life. Oh dear. I don't know. Anyway, listen, love, we're about to start our descent.
Yes,
so
we're already.
So time for quick fire.
Getting pressure in the ears.
Yes, quick fire round. You ready for this?
Yep.
Mile high, or I'm too shy.
I never have. I think I can say this because he's dead. Or past, as people insist on saying, which really makes me shiver with distaste. But Robert Lindsay, the actor Robert Lindsay, was travelling back from New York, and in front of him in first class was John Denver, as in, Take Me Home, Country Roads, and Jet Plane appropriately, and John Denver was shagging the woman next to him under a blanket that wasn't doing much of a job. And, really noisily, gruntily, and full on. Just absolutely. And Robert was going, what? Covered himself in a blanket. He couldn't think what to do. And then about 20 minutes later, the blanket was whipped off him, and the hostess said with a grin, "It's all right, they've stopped now." I can never hear John Denver in the same way again.
Oh my God, his songs are quite vanilla as well, aren't they?
Exactly.
You fill up my sins.
It is.
Wow. Okay. Adrenaline junkie, adrenaline slunky. Will you zip wire?
Yes, I have. I think it was when I did it, the longest zip wire in the world, in Copper Canyon in Mexico. Oh. Because I'm a coward, I keep doing things to try and make up for being a coward. It's a sort of weird thing, and maybe that's what brave people are like in war. Yeah. I'll do this. I'm a coward, but I've got to do this because I'm a coward. You know what I mean? And similarly, when I was in South Island, New Zealand, we were doing The Hobbit. I'll tell you a quick story, but it is quite good. So we were up there in Wellington, which is at the bottom of the North Island, and down in the South Island is this amazing, the sort of Alps of New Zealand. And I had about a week off from filming, and my friend Sam Neill, the wonderful actor Sam Neill, Jurassic Park and many, many other things, he said, you borrow my house, I won't be there. So we went down to his house near Queenstown. And I was there with my boyfriend at the time, this is before I'd met Elliot, and we passed this bridge, Hackett Bridge, and it's the original bungee jump bridge. I said, we got to do this. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. He said, okay. So we went on the bridge, and I thought, what am I doing? So I bungee jumped, and immediately afterwards I said, I've got to do it again. And so we went and did it again. And I said, it's fantastic. Anyway, then got back, and a few days later was sitting in makeup, and Peter Jackson, the director, happened to be there, and there were a few others, but while I was being made up. And they were saying, did you have a good time down in South Island? I said, yeah, it was wonderful. Went bungee jumping, and suddenly the place fell silent. And Peter Jackson said, so you didn't get the memo? That's the New Zealand accent, brilliantly done, by the way. The memo.
I wondered where you were from.
I said, what memo? He said, no bungee jumping. And what had happened is, I think, I can say this, Orlando Bloom, who played Legolas, this elf thing.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say John Denver shagged on it.
He a month or so earlier had a few days off, and he went bungee jumping. And as sometimes happens, and it happened to him, it made his eyes bulge and pop. And they bulged and they stayed bulged for a few days, and so they couldn't film on him when he get back. So a memo went out to say no bungee jumping, and I hadn't seen the memo. But fortunately, my eyes didn't bulge. But it's a bizarre story anyway. So in a sense, I am a bit of an adrenaline junkie. Yeah. I enjoyed bungee jumping, and I also once off a mountain just above Ipanema Beach, I hang glided. No, it was paraglided. That was thrilling. It was extraordinary. And it's a short burst, you go off the mountain like that and you fly down, and you land on Ipanema Beach, and you have a nice, coconut milk and everything. But I had lost my voice by the amount I'd screamed, but screamed with joy. It wasn't terror. It was, wow! Sort of, it was just going wow, you know.
So you are a junkie.
I guess I am.
You're an adrenaline
I guess
junkie.
I am, but I don't think of myself as brave at all. And I'm not good on. I wouldn't like to climb. I'm not good on
Did
that.
you see that program, Shark Infested Celebrity Waters?
I wouldn't like that either. No. Although I have swum with sharks, but with Galapagos sharks in the North Shore.
And they're the nice ones.
Yeah, in Hawaii, and they look like great whites, so they make fabulous photographs because people see you like that with throwing chum at this thing, and they go, "God, Stephen, you." I said, "Yeah, I kind of coped." They said, they're the sweetest things on earth. You can stroke them.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And then last but not least, tip 'em or fuck 'em. Are you a good tipper, or do you think, fuck you, I'll never see you again?
Oh, no, I am a good tipper, though I do also think it's shocking that one has to be, especially in America. In Britain, now they're changing it, and you can be certain that if it says, whatever it is, percent gratuity, it does now, by law, have to go to the wait staff.
Rightfully so.
And that is so important, because before you couldn't even be sure if you...
Well, there's some really inexpensive restaurants you go to, and then, I do say to the waiter, do you get this? No. And you're like, that's disgusting.
But one of the awful things now is I very rarely carry cash.
Oh, yeah.
And so things like in a hotel, I do like to, it's a thing Mel Smith taught me. Of course, he did it hugely. I mean, with great roles. His natural habitat was a race course and with bookies and so vast rolls of cash. So he said, "Love, when you get to a hotel, 50 quid straight away." Then he said, when the minibar's empty at 3 a.m, which it often was in the case of Mel, he said, "You can call down and say, come, bring us up 2 bottles of vodka," and they'll do it because they remember the tip you gave them. Yeah. So he's kind of like seeding his service for the rest of the stay. But I do like to give it, if they carry your suitcases up. I
love that Tommy Cooper one when he puts the taxi driver's pocket, the tea bag. Get yourself a drink on me.
So good.
I love it. Thank you so much for flying Alan Air. If you'd like to collect your emotional baggage from the carousel.
Hey, thank you, my dear fellow. What a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed your flight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't ever forget, life's a beach. So speaking of Oscar Wilde, you've got some little theatre gossip for me.
Yes,
exclusive.
I was delighted to be asked by Sonia Friedman, the producer, who is co-producing the National Theatre's transfer of their production of The Importance of Being Earnest to the West End, starting in September. And I am to play the part of Lady Bracknell. I hope you're laughing in a good way. The formidable aunt of Algernon, who's played by Ollie Alexander. And I'm hugely looking forward to it. It's a play that changed my life when I first saw it when I was 10, 11, 12 and understood something of what language can do. It just absolutely transported me.
Do you want me to put you in touch with RuPaul's Drag Race? Maybe
they might be able to help me with makeup tips.
And tucking. And,
tucking and glowing. I would be enchanted.
Dear. Yes. Oh, I've had to ruin it. There's us talking about theatre and I end up talking about cock again.